that doesn't mean that girls don't have strong feelings and don't prefer some girls and hate other girls. It just means you don't see it because it's more scramble competition as opposed to contest. And when you talk about agreeable, I think that's a very smart idea to be agreeable if you want to protect yourself. So all the ways in which I talk about how females protect themselves, one of the biggest ones is being agreeable. You smile, right? You are polite. You are considerate. Doesn't matter what you really think, right? But in that particular situation, it's a really good strategy. I do not think females are more agreeable. Every single study around the world shows females are more agreeable because you ask them and we will all say, oh yes, we're agreeable. We like whatever the items are on that well-known measure, right? Where they look, agreeableness is one of the big 5 factors. And yes, women are always saying more agreeable, but go home and ask their children and ask their husbands and ask their mothers how agreeable they are. Not agreeable. When we're home, we are not agreeable.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking about real life. To me, this is kind of pop psychology. I know it's ubiquitous. I know everybody talks about it, but at home, that's not what you see. But when you open the door, your smile goes on and your politeness and all the things that you do at home goes out the door, right? And
I wonder whether I wonder whether actually like personality, particularly agreeableness, because I know the research and I've dived into the big 5 personality, and I was looking into agreeableness a lot because I consistently come up as very, very low in agreeableness, which my family would definitely agree with. But it kind of, as you were talking about it, it popped into my mind that perhaps it's whether it's outward towards the world, towards the alien world, which could be harmful to you, or whether it's at home when you are safe, because then you can afford to take the risks because you know you're not going to be punched in the face or stabbed or whatever by another ape that is trying to eye up the apple that you are also trying to compete for, or whatever resource we're talking about. So I wonder whether actually those personality traits, particularly that one, is whether it's more tested when what we are like with most people, not what we are like in the comfort of our homes with our closest. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always tell my classes now, I'm going to say what this is like out in the world, but at home, it's totally wrong. Everything I'm saying is totally wrong. And everything. Now, in fairness, domestic violence is a huge problem around the world, right? They say something like 1 out of 4 women are abused by, some intimate partner. So then you have to be really, really, really agreeable, right? If you're going to get beaten up and for whatever reason you feel that you have to stay and you can't leave and there's no one to protect you or nowhere to go or you don't have the resources. So then you have to be really agreeable. But if, as you said, you're in a nice family situation, these are your kin. They're your children. Maybe your parents come to visit. Hopefully your spouse is not a domestic abuser, then they need you because they are adaptive enough to know that you're the one that's going to keep their genes going. And so they're not going to hurt you. And of course, women will beat up their kids, and it's awful to say, but women will hit their kids because they're not going to hit back. That's never going to hurt you as long as they're not adolescents, if they're younger. So absolutely. But the idea that women are more agreeable in the home is crazy unless you're talking about really violent men. And there are always a lot of violent men. But certainly when we're with sisters or even brothers, right, and children and cousins and people who are invested in our genes being passed on, invested on us because they've known us for a long time, then it's totally different. And none of those characterizations of women as passive or agreeable or whatever, so compassionate and tolerant apply because we have to get through life. We have to cook dinner. We have to make sure the child gets to the doctor if something's wrong. We have to keep the parent who could help us in as good health as possible. We have so many things on our minds, and probably nowadays we're working to. And certainly hunter-gatherer women were not staying home. They were going out and producing the food and gathering it and so forth. So this idea that women, are all these stereotypes, whether I started with saying more cooperative or, less competitive, all these stereotypes, and they don't apply to real life, in my opinion. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look carefully, you'll see there's a lot of competition even outside the house, and for good reason, because these are individuals who could take away your husband, take away your resources, invade your property, do all kinds of things.